to start to look into this in the proper manner. They can't have, two concepts, opposing concepts, in these universities and the whole school system, and then have them causing all of these wars, violent atheistic revolutions and so on, and then call for tolerance. I mean, come on. That's tolerance call is just to get them off the hook for the violence. They're responsible for this violence. They created the ideologies, and they have to be held accountable and say, look, we're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to be tolerant. You have to resolve this. And it's got to be resolved now for the sake of mankind. We can't, what are you going to wait for a nuclear bomb to go off in a major city somewhere? I mean, this is just cannot be tolerated. It has to be resolved, not tolerated.
Explain what the supernatural beings or what God is.
Well, no one can explain God, but I mean, if you just look around at the incredible intricacy of everything that we look at, for instance, science now, even biology has to admit that they cannot make an explanation for life because it's so complex. When they got to the cell, they found, first started out with a microscope, then an electron microscope, then an atomic microscope, and the further down they go, the further they find there's further to go. So it's infinite, and this is the Almighty God. And also in terms of biology, they realize now that the nucleus of a cell cannot exist without the external wall, and the wall is, the information for the wall is recorded in the nucleus, so you cannot have the cell wall, you cannot have the nucleus without the cell wall because it can't exist without it, and you can't have the cell wall unless you have the nucleus first, because that's what designs the cell wall. So it's the chicken and egg theory. You cannot have that evolve. It has to be created in one shot. The cell has to be created with the nucleus and the wall in order for it to be. So that makes for creation. And so the complexity of life is everywhere around us, even though it's in the system of death. The complexity of it all is just incredible, and no man can understand it. No man will ever, I don't even think in the next life, be able to fully understand God, but we'll be constantly learning and getting more knowledge just as we are here. The thing that's going to save mankind is more technology, just what you see here, this incredible ability for you and I to talk over a phone line and be heard all over the world on the web by people who want to, log on and hear it. So the thing that's going to bring men together and shrink the world is technology. It's not going to be academia. Academia is really dividing us. But what's bringing us together more and more and making a young man like you have the ability to communicate all around the globe is technology, and that's shrinking the world. It's going to make it easier for us to communicate and advance new ideas and force academia, I don't mean physically, but intellectually, to address these problems. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon because the violence is making it impossible to continue the way we're going. And so we're going to have to address it, and I'm very optimistic. And young men like you, I give you a lot of credit because I hear you not really tout your own horn. But I will tout your horn for you is that, you've already done an enormous amount of work by creating your website and this wonderful talk show, and you're reaching out to people to have a conversation, and I salute you. And for me, you're the future. I'm an old man, but I'm very optimistic about people like you, and I'd like you to, I'll make sure you get every one of my books, because if you're going to run a talk show, I'd like you to be knowledgeable about what I've discovered.
Thank you, and I plan on having you on the show as much as I can. Like the new book comes out, I want to have you on the show.
Sure.
And, but I can't do what I do without having people like you with the hard amount of research that you have done over the years. You see, I'm like, all I'm doing is just exposing people of your work.
No, you're far more than that. You're an open mind. You're a bright guy. You've got a lot of skills that you can produce what you produced here, and you make me optimistic. Just the fact that you're interested, and not only just interested, there's a lot of people who are interested just to know, but you're out there trying to bring this to the public. And I'm not just talking about my concepts, but all the concepts that you have on the show, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful future and have many, many, many great guests and great hosts, and you'll be able to share a lot of knowledge. So no, I'm very impressed with you. I really was very impressed when we first spoke, and that's why I agreed to do the show. And I looked at your website. I thought it was phenomenal, and I really wish you the best of luck, and I think you'll have great success.
Thank you very much, sir. It's an honor, and because I can't wait to read your book either. Mm-hmm. But let me see what I have here. And why would God in the Bible not want Adam and Eve to eat from the from the tree of knowledge?
Well, because, you see, that's a very great question. That's a really good question, because, see, it's important. When you take knowledge, you can't put it back. Once you have the knowledge, people who are listening to us now, they hear this knowledge. They might be Christian or atheist or whatever and want to reject it, but they can't put it back. They have that knowledge, and it's going to bother them. So the reason God didn't want Adam and Eve to eat of the knowledge of good and evil was because once they took that knowledge, they became judged. They could judge between right and wrong. And that is a very powerful knowledge. And now that's why you see immediately after Adam and Eve are hiding in the garden. Why? Because they knew that there was evil in the world. They weren't hiding because they were naked. They didn't even have bodies yet. They were spirit beings. But they were afraid because they had knowledge that there was an evil force in the world. Up until then, before that, it says they were naked. But if you really research that word, it means they were innocent. They had no guile. They had no fear. But once they took the knowledge of good and evil, they could now understand that there was evil forces in the universe that would hurt them. And that's why they were hiding. And when God comes into the garden, he says to them, why are you hiding? Have you taken the knowledge of good and evil? Sure, because evil is frightening. See, so that's the reason. And once they took that knowledge, they could then contest with God so that he couldn't have them in Eden any longer, because now he had someone who would contest with him. They were no longer submissive. So he said he had to put them into death, which is where we are on planet Earth, and he promised Adam and Eve that he would send someone to rescue them and bring them back into the garden, because he knew that Satan had deceived them. And he told Satan, I will use this man to crush you. And he did. He used Jesus, who was born as a man and resurrected, and then he fought with Satan at the Battle of Armageddon and destroyed him.
What was the Garden of Eden? Was it an actual place, or is it a metaphor, just like many other things, for some other reason?
Well, no one really knows, but it's clearly it was not on the earth. I've done some research on it. It says that if the best description you can get of it is that it's a separated area, a fenced-off area, like a garden. And so it was a place separated from, obviously, the angels and the other forces that were in the universe at that time, and including the fallen angels. So God had set him in a separate place, him and Eve, and he wanted to keep them separate so they couldn't be tainted. Now, where that is, I have no knowledge. But if you look at every once in a while, or even if you read in the Bible, once in a while God will open up the eyes of a human, and he sees right around him forces of all kinds of deities and beings that he has never seen. But they're right there, so it could be just another dimension. It could be right here, but we are incapable of seeing it because it's in another dimension that we're not capable of seeing.
Do you believe in the ancient astronaut theory?
Not in terms of humans, but in terms of gods. Certainly, there were deities that were
just like von Daniken's work.
Yes, I'm very familiar with von Daniken, and I understand that he calls them. I think von Daniken was trying to escape criticism from academia, but he didn't. They lambasted him anyway. But I thought the man was a genius. And that what he did was he used the words aliens or astronauts rather than gods, to avoid that criticism. But they attacked him anyway. But they attacked him. They could attack him all they want. He sold 25 million books, and these high mucky-mucks in science and theology can't sell anything. So they were wonderful, fascinating books, and I recommend them to everyone. And these men do great work. And so, the astronauts described in Daniken would really be gods and demigods that were traveling from one dimension to the other and giving great knowledge to mankind, and they were using it to build the pyramids and do all the things the great